and it is not by chance that we come to the Trinity. I think maybe the best way to explain, if it is an explanation, I don't know, but to enlighten a little the three is to say that the three, I would say the three is the first reason, and maybe is the heart of any reason. I would say even the two times reason. Because even in a two-time reason, there is one, two, and the reason itself as a third. I think that the third starts with that. You have the one. The one alone is nothing. The one cannot sustain itself alone. The one, as says Hegel, the one is its own negation. You take one, imagine one, only one, without another. In a certain way, there is no existence. Absolute one. So the one in every kind of the one under its own negation and produces one. It is not a production, but open the possibility and the necessity of the two. One, two. The two doesn't come on the place of the one, but it opens the place of the one to another one. One, two. But with the two, we don't have only a second one, which would be only a second one, and then one there and one there, and each of them would at the same time be its own negation. But one, two, and this division of the one in two, this duplication is itself the three. The three is not a third one. Of course, the three is a third one in the simple addition, I would say, in the bad infinite, precisely. 1, 2, 3, and then why not 4, 5, etc. But 1, 2, 3, and in a certain way it is the end. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This is how you call the valse. The valse, you know, something with 3 times valse. Everything is given with the valse. With a beautiful blue denim. Now so the third in the three, the third is not, so no one of the two and the three, no one is another one. But the first is a division of the one, the second is a division of the one, the third is precisely the relation between 1 and 2, between the two. It is the fact that division of the one is possible. To come back briefly to Augustine's Trinity, and to remember that Trinity is precisely not a triplicity. A triplicity, there's three entities, three subjects, what you want. For example, like in the Roman institution of the triumvirs. Three triumvir, Latin means three men. Triumviar, the way of government by three people, three persons. So, one government, one power with three people. But of course, there is no reason there. There are three people. They have to be close together, to govern together, but many times the triumvirate enter in a crisis, and one takes power over the other. So the triplicity of a triumvirate, of a triple entity, triple reality in any way is not a trinity. So is not I would say the essence of the three. The essence of the three is the rhythms 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That is when the three is the relation of the division between 1 and 2. The possibility of the 2 is given by the 3, and the relation of the 1 to the 2 and the 2 to the 1 is the 3 itself. So I said, to come back to Augustine, the first trinity he takes is a trinity of love, that is the lover, the loved, and love itself. Because the lover cannot enter in relation to a loved, to a beloved, if you prefer, without love. And from the point of view of love, and you can take love here in the broad meaning of even of friendship, not necessarily of love in the now meaning. Now, it's not now, but so from the point of view of the love, the second one, or the first as the lover, and the second one as the beloved, are not twice one. They are twice one as the person, as subject, as well. But in the relation of love, or again in the relation of friendship, the lover and the beloved, I would say, exist only as the two of the same relation, which is love. And then it belongs the same to the reason. That is, that reason is not only a material succession of times, you know. Of course, this is as well that 1, 2, 3, 4, But the essence of reason is not the number of times. The essence of reason, I think you understand that all. The essence of reason is that the succession of time makes one time, but another kind of time. Besides is the time of the reason. The time of the time will be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2. But I think that we could in a way demonstrate that the three-time reason plays a role in every kind of reason, because it is the minimal form of reason that is one, another one, maybe 2 or 3 other one, and the relationship between them. That is simply the fact that you cannot speak of a reason simply by saying 1, 2, 3. There is no reason. Where is the reason? The reason is in the accent, is in what the ancient poet and musician named arsis and thesis. Thesis goes arsis to them. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if I say that, then I have a reason. And as you know, the poetry, the ancient poetry was entirely based on this kind of rhythm and on different, what was called maître, what you say, meter. Meter, yes. So we can come to true complication of meters, but the important thing is that there is a difference of accent, a difference between the times. Not all the time are the same time. The same time is without rhythm. This is the time for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, etc. So this is as well the reason for what the word, the Greek word reason, at the beginning has the same meaning as the word schema, and schema means a figure, which is still the meaning, I think, of the word scheme or scheme. It depends how we say shame and you say scheme. The scheme is besides it is not a figure of a figuration. The scheme is like an esquisse, no? You say esquisse, no?
Sketch.
Just a sketch. So sketch, yes, a sketch. So maybe sketch has to do with scheme. I don't know. But the schema is not a figure as a figuration of something. It is, I would say, it is a possibility of a figure. So, and of a figure in the sense of a form coming back to itself. In the reason and in the schema, there is a come back to itself. I think this is the important point. And in the three, there is a come back to what self? To each of the three. This is not that the three come back to the one. Then we would be again in the case of the one alone. No. But 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, come back to 1 and to 2 and to 3. And I would add, this is the very movement, and at the same time the very configuration of the coming back to the self in general. Because what means to come back to the self? That means nothing else than the self. The self. What is a self? The self is what is self to itself. But how can anything be selfish, to say that with that word, you know? Precisely not selfish in the ordinary meaning, that is to prefer oneself and doing everything in the interest for the sake of oneself. But or selfish, if you want, in the meaning of the verb to self. The verb to self exists in English. I know very rare words in English. I don't know the usual words, but I know the rare word self to self. Because to self is to inseminate a plant with its own sexual cell, or something like that. I don't remember. You can find that easily in the dictionary. That to self the verb that we don't have in French and neither in German or in other languages, I know. To self is not to come back to something that would already be given. It is to produce the same by its own relation to itself. But it is a process. It goes further than the coming back. So we have all the time the representation, the back representation that the self would be essentially a coming back to the self. But coming back to the self is nothing else than coming back to the coming back. Because self means already coming back. It is interesting to notice that, I don't know how self may be analyzed in English, but in French, soi is like autrui, is other, is what we call a cas regime, that is in the grammar a word which has no first case in the declination related to the language with declination, like Latin or German. The first case of the soi is the I, if you want, or the first case of the self is the I. But I is not a self. I, because precisely I belongs to everybody who may say I. I say I, but you say I, and we all say the same I. So when I come back to myself, I don't come back to the I. I would say the I is by essence the one going out and never coming back. My I never comes back to me. My I is entirely in the utterance of I. The self is supposed to be something like yes, in fact, a kind of return from the I, to myself, or to me. And of course, there is something like that. Of course, I do not simply say I, and me would be nothing and without any relation to this I. But when the I comes back to me, I said, he never finds the same me. I say I today, but in a certain extent, at each moment I say I, there is this return to myself. That is that myself is transforming itself by saying I, and saying I is partly a way of speaking, because it is, I not only say I act, I do, I mean, my gesture, my face, is the I. Where is me? Where is the self to which we so easily imagine that it would be a final return and the final constitution of me? Nowhere. At each moment it is somewhere else. At each moment it transforms itself. And our visible transformation is, and we know that, is only a very superficial appearance of the transformation which is still at stake. So, this is very simple. The self is an infinite return to the self. And this return, to be a return, need to be gone out. And to go out is to go toward another. If I don't go to another, I would say I don't go out. Even if the other may be myself. Maybe I don't need to have the presence of other person, but to go out, what I name here, to go out, has a more precise meaning. To go out is to make sense. To go out is not to go out of the house. I can't go out of the house and without many sense or meaning. Of course, can be a meaning. I go out to I don't know, to buy the newspaper and the bread for breakfast. But this is not going out. Going out is to open the self, to open the self, precisely in the form of the I. That is the concept of one. But in order to make sense, what is to make sense? To make sense can be a lot of different things. It can even be to buy the newspaper and to buy it. To make sense is to open a relation. There is no sense for one. This is a sentence of Bataille. There is no sense for one. And it is for the same reason that the one is its own negation. If the one stay as the one, without relation, there is, in a certain extent, nobody. That is the terrible problem on the psychological level of children suffering this illness, which is called autism in French. So in the very strong case of autism, the person, the I, is unable to enter a relation, then unable to make sense. Of course, there are different levels, so I'm not talking about the illness. It's just that, you know, the case of the called the wolf children, or children wolf, I don't know. It was a very, very famous case in the end of the 18th century in France, and Truffaut made a film with this story, a very, very nice film, where he narrates the story, which is written in a book of a boy which was founded age of, don't remember exactly, 8, 9, something like that, or in, perhaps in 76, no. And this boy, who lived, I don't know where, in the forest, was, as I think, not educated, but becoming older with wolf, and was absolutely unable to enter the relation, enter a small part of relation with this doctor. I don't remember the name of the doctor. It was a wonderful man with his patience to try to make from this boy a human being that is a person, that is an I, for, I don't remember, for a long time, but at the end he failed, because after a certain age, so we know, so it is impossible to open, I would say, to open the closed envelope of something that should be an I, but cannot become an I, because it cannot enter the simple fact of saying I and acting as an I. So to make sense is to enter the relation. Which means that sense is nothing else than relation. Sense is to open a relation. Sense has, in a way, nothing to do with language. In a way, in a certain extent. Of course, there is no sense, like for this boy, for somebody who did not enter the language. But once you are in the language, you can not use the language, but make sense. A lot of things of us are still making sense. The way we are facing the other, we are entering the relation to the other, doing that and that. Everything, our whole body and our whole behavior is sense. Each of us is a sense. It is not a sense as a meaning, as I could say, this is the sense of, this is a meaning. Of course we have meanings, example, you are student here, or some are not student but are fake students. No. And I am a teacher, but those are small and thin meaning that goes not very far. We have, each of us has a lot of meaning. For example, I am a French citizen. That's the meaning. I am a French professor retired. This is meaning. I am also a French emeritus professor. Another meaning, etc. I am a father. I am a grandfather, etc. All that are meaning. But the sense is not something that I have as a property, as a character. No. The sense is really what I am. And first, I would say that I am. That I am. Right. Then, so all this is true to say, sense is the opening to the other. I would say the otherness, not necessarily one person, but despite the fact that it is very difficult not to have relation to at least one person or few amount of people. But I am to myself, I am another. And what makes sense is the way I am in relation with myself. How? How you know that very well. I feel myself. I understand myself, or I don't understand myself. That is, I am in a certain relation to me. I agree or I disagree with myself. And maybe more than that, and I'm thinking to something I want to say later, to think. What is to think? To think is precisely to come in relation to oneself, but precisely never without relation with the other, but to take it in the, to say, in a kind of nuclear entity. To think is to enter in relation with myself in the extent I cannot give meaning to something. This is thinking. Thinking is not, I don't know, to enter a reflection like what I have to do, what I have to do, in 3 days, or is it good to read that book for that purpose? No, that's not to think. That is to calculate. That is to think. Means that heavy meaning of thinking is to enter sense. But to enter the sense is all the time to expose oneself to what has no meaning, to what is beyond any meaning and beyond any understanding. If we don't go towards the ununderstandable, we are not thinking. Oh, to think is rare. We don't think every day, and we think sometimes without knowing that we think. For example, we think in love, because precisely we don't know, we don't understand that we do in loving. We understand something, but what we understand as a desire, as a preference, as a agreement, that all is not love. Love is to enter in even love oneself is enter in relation to the other one in the extent he is over any meaning. That is the same to love oneself. To love oneself is not to be happy to be what I am. It's not to be selfish. Oh well, I'm very happy to be what I am. No, it is precisely to recognize and accept and even desire the one which I cannot recognize, that I cannot take as a meaning or as an object. Then the one through or as sense enter in relation to the two, but the two is not second after the one, because both one are first, if you want. It makes no sense to say the first is one and second there is a second. No. Take even the child and the mother, the parents, everybody. Who is first? This is a famous story about the egg and the chicken. Yes. Yes, the story is all the time there. And this is the story of egg about the child too. But who was now the first? Who was the first? The first being two, first. And between the two, who was the first? The question about who has been the first in a love relationship, love or even friendship, this question comes up only in the time of crisis. You was the first. No, I was not. You know. Without that, no, you seduced me. No. Because if we are in that relation, but it could be absolutely non-passionate relation, even less than friendship, but a good relation, a relation of doing something together, working together. Then in that relation, the question of the first doesn't exist, cannot exist, because both or the two become at the same time the first in a relation where each is the first and second. And the relation is the third. And so the third is not a term. And in the three, in the Trinity, the third is not a term. The third is a relation. And the relation is what happened between the terms without being itself, if it is possible to say that, a term. But of course you understand the terms as well, the one and the two, do not exist without the relation. So they are the one and the two of evolution. And the relation is nothing if not the relation between